In the United States, wine drinking laws are shaped by a mixture of federal rules, state laws, and even local regulations that can differ from one town to another. At the national level, the most important rule is that the legal minimum drinking age is set at 21 years old. This law was established under the National Minimum Drinking Age Act of 1984, and it required all states to raise the minimum age to 21 if they wished to continue receiving federal highway funds. As a result, every state in America today enforces the rule that no one under 21 can legally purchase alcohol, including wine. However, what often surprises people is that underage drinking is not always completely banned. In some states, young people under 21 can legally drink wine in private homes if their parents or guardians permit it. In other states, exceptions are carved out for religious ceremonies, such as communion in churches, or for educational purposes when studying culinary arts and winemaking. This shows how the drinking age law is not as simple as it appears at first glance. Wine sales and availability also vary greatly from state to state. In California, Oregon, and Washington, states known for their famous wine regions, wine is widely available in grocery stores, restaurants, and tasting rooms. But in states like Pennsylvania and Utah, wine sales are much more tightly controlled. In fact, in Utah, wine can only be purchased in state-run liquor stores, and even then, the hours and days of sale are restricted. Meanwhile, in Texas, some counties are known as dry counties, where the sale of alcohol, including wine, is completely prohibited. Residents in those areas often have to travel to neighboring counties just to buy a bottle of wine. This patchwork of laws makes the United States one of the most complicated countries in the world when it comes to alcohol regulations. Another key area of law involves where people are allowed to drink wine. Across much of the country, drinking wine in public places, such as sidewalks, parks, or beaches, is illegal and can result in a fine or even arrest. However, there are famous exceptions. In New Orleans, Louisiana, people are allowed to drink wine and other alcoholic beverages in public as long as they use plastic cups instead of glass containers. Las Vegas also has a reputation for relaxed drinking laws, with tourists often seen carrying drinks openly along the strip. But outside of these special cases, most states treat public consumption of wine as a violation of open container laws. Speaking of open containers, it is also illegal in nearly every state to have an open bottle of wine inside a vehicle. Some states extend the ban even to passengers, while others allow passengers to drink as long as the driver does not. The goal of these laws is to prevent drinking and driving, which remains a major issue across America. The nationwide legal limit for blood alcohol concentration is 0.08% for drivers over 21, and much lower for commercial drivers and those underage. Driving under the influence of wine, beer, or spirits is treated the same, and penalties can include heavy fines, suspension of a driver's license, mandatory alcohol education programs, and even jail time. Law enforcement agencies across the country treat DUI offenses very seriously, and campaigns such as "Drive Sober or Get Pulled Over" are used to warn drivers of the risks. The story of wine laws in America is not just about restrictions, though. Over the past several decades, there has been a growing movement to make wine more accessible to consumers. Many states have modernized their laws to allow direct shipping from wineries to customers' homes. This has been a major change for the wine industry, especially with the rise of online sales. However, not all states allow direct shipment. Some still ban it or place heavy restrictions, meaning wine lovers often need to check carefully whether they can legally order wine online. Another trend has been the growth of wine tastings and festivals, which are legal in most states but usually require permits and adherence to strict serving rules. Cultural attitudes toward wine also play a role in shaping the laws. In places with a strong religious influence, such as parts of the Bible Belt, restrictions tend to be stricter. In contrast, states with large wine industries, like California, are more liberal in their approach. The balance between personal freedom, economic interests, and public safety continues to shape wine regulations. For example, after the COVID-19 pandemic, many states temporarily allowed restaurants to sell wine and cocktails to go. This was originally meant to help struggling businesses survive during lockdowns, but in many states, those temporary laws became permanent because of their popularity. Penalties for violating wine drinking laws also vary widely. A minor caught with wine in their possession might receive only a small fine in one state but face license suspension or mandatory community service in another. For adults, selling wine to someone under 21 is a serious offense and can result in heavy fines, loss of a liquor license, and even jail time. Businesses are therefore very strict about checking IDs, and many use advanced scanning technology to avoid mistakes. Even with all these complexities, one principle remains the same nationwide. Wine, like all forms of alcohol, is regulated with the goal of protecting public health and safety. America's long history with alcohol laws, from prohibition in the early 20th century to today's state-by-state variations, reflects the country's struggle to balance freedom of choice with social responsibility. Prohibition, which lasted from 1920 to 1933, banned all alcohol nationwide, including wine, but it ultimately failed and was repealed with the 21st Amendment. Since then, the federal government has left most alcohol regulation to the states, which explains why laws differ so much depending on where you are. So if you are traveling across the United States and you enjoy wine, it is important to know that what is legal in one place might be illegal in another. In one state, you might freely buy wine at a supermarket on a Sunday, while in another, you may find the store shelves empty because alcohol sales are restricted on Sundays. In one city, you might stroll with a glass of wine on the street, while in another, that same action could result in an expensive ticket. Wine drinking laws in America are therefore not only about age but also about time, place, and circumstance. At the end of the day, the legal drinking age of 21 remains the cornerstone of American alcohol law, but everything else is subject to state and local variation. Whether it is the ability of parents to serve wine to their children at home, the rules around bringing your own bottle to a restaurant, or the question of whether you can order a shipment of wine from a vineyard across the country, the answer depends on where you are standing. That is why lawyers, businesses, and consumers alike must always stay informed about the rules in their specific state. Wine in America is more than just a drink. It is tied to culture, commerce, law, and tradition. Understanding its regulations is key to understanding how America itself balances freedom with control, individual rights with community values, and enjoyment with responsibility.